Hi, hello, welcome to Spell Day. We're covering spell every single day of the year from the 5e PHP +3. We're at +2 at the moment. You can head back in the playlist to find them, and today's spell is the good old Polymorph.
No!
4th level Transmutation, casting time of 1 action, range of 60 feet, components for both somatic material, a caterpillar cocoon. Duration, concentration up to 1 hour. This spell transforms a creature that you can see within range into a new form. An unwilling creature must make a wisdom saving throw to avoid the effect. The spell has no effect on a shape changer or creature with 0 hit points. The transformation lasts for the duration or until the target drops to 0 hit points or dies. The new form can be any beast whose challenge rating is equal to or less than the target's or the target's level if it doesn't have a challenge rating. The target's game statistics, including mental ability scores, are replaced by the statistics of the chosen beast. It retains its alignment and personality. The target assumes the hit points of its new form. When it reverts to its normal form, the creature returns to the number of hit points it had before it transformed. If it reverts as a result of dropping 0 hit points, any excess damage carries over to its normal form. As long as the excess damage doesn't reduce the creature's normal form to 0 hit points, it isn't knocked unconscious. The creature is limited in the actions it can perform by the nature of its new form, and it can't speak, cast spells, or take any other action that requires hands or speech. The target's gear melts into the new form. The creature can't activate, use, wield, or otherwise benefit from any of its equipment. I mean, it's essentially an unwilling ranged wild shape, just without some of the nice benefits. Nice benefits being the fact that when you wild shape, you keep your mental stats. That's big. Because when it says it keeps an alignment and personality, then alright, fine. Maybe you can tell who your allies are, what your general foes are. And personality, sure, but let's say you were a wizard with 18 intelligence and then you drop to a duck. Can you see the difference in those two numbers? That's gotta have some effect. And I've seen some people rule it that way, that's one of the gambles with using Polymorph as a benefit instead of just a debuff, is like, oh, well, the person begins thinking like the beast, like, oh, they've been turned into a slug. All they can really think about is doing slug things. What are slug things? Food and slugging around, I guess. Or if it's a predator, go out and eat, hunt, kill, whatever. But that's if you rule it that way. Some people don't. Some people allow you to keep your full mental faculties and just have the mental stats just affect skills and saves. The health system works exactly like the wild shape system, so I'm not going to cover that too much, just it's additional. So if you really wanted to, again, the beneficial side of it, buff the target by giving them a whole other stat block and health pool. Because that's the great benefit if this is cast on another target for the sake of benefit, is if you're casting this on someone else and they're not holding concentration on the spell, like you can cast this on yourself, but if you cast this on someone else and you're holding concentration, the other person, the only way they're getting knocked out of it is with a dispel or actively being brought down to 0. Otherwise, it has to be from you dropping the spell. Though, since it does work like wild shape, damage is carried over. A fun use of this I've seen is casting, I think the best one was a dragon. Turning a dragon into a snail, and then it just plummeted the full height, and then took the fall damage, and it went straight through to the dragon. Because that snail only had 1 hit point. A lot of these might be obvious targets, and the weaker ones might not seem too viable. A 1 hit point spider can get into some really, really tight spaces. And not just in the literally tight, though that as well, but I mean more in the stealthing around. How often do you see a spider up in the rooftop? I thought I saw a web for a moment. But you kind of get my point. If it's a bug, you're not really going to pay attention to it. You may swat at it, but it's not your, oh no, someone's spying in on us, or someone's sneaking in, or we're about to be ambushed. His benefit is, while with Wild Shape and Druid, you're the caster getting into that situation on your own, and you might run into trouble if you drop Wild Shape. You could put this on your Barbarian, have a Barbarian as a spider, and chuck them into someplace, which puts me on to the Pokeball. The fleshy Pokeball. Oh, that's not a good word for it. Big scary, big bad, big melee monster, something really scary. Or a really scary melee fighter. Well, any kind of fighter or dangerous entity. Cast this ahead of time, take a hag, have them go to a troll, cast Polymorph on it before a fight or when they're heading to a place and hiding before the adventurers arrive within that hour. And they just have a slug in their pocket. And they throw a slug at the adventurers. The adventurers are laughing like, why is this hag throwing a slug? And then it's just a troll within melee range of all of them. And you could do this in other cases as well, like if you can't help a barbarian up a ladder or jumping up a building, you can turn them into something small. You just chuck them. Because that's the great thing, is their physicality is so different, you can have it affected by different things. You could have a bird pick them up, drop them somewhere else, fling them, throw them in a sling, fire them out of a crossbow. Though, when it comes to Polymorph, and what's probably going to affect its rating, is in the games I've played, in the games I've watched, in the games that I run, there has been a homebrew, which I thought is how Polymorph worked. In fact, I thought it worked like Wild Shape does, in that you have to have seen the creature before. Nope, nowhere in the spell description that we just read does it mention you have to have seen the creature before. I'm sorry. The beast list, you might be thinking, oh, that's like wolves and deer, but in base 5e, that also includes the dinosaurs in the monster manual, if you're running them. Giant ape, dire creatures, it can get nasty real fast, especially the moment you get access to this at 4th level. I mean, that's definitely worth the concentration. Not to mention if you're the spellcaster and you cast this on yourself, the animal's con bonus is now yours, because yeah, you can't cast spells, that doesn't mean you can't concentrate on them. It says nothing about dropping concentration. Which honestly, I think it should if it's affecting mental stats, and also doesn't allow you to spellcast in the first place, but I think the reason they did that was for balance, so you can't do this on an enemy for 1 round and have them drop concentration. But it's the fact that this doesn't, you don't need to have seen the creature before. I rule it that way, but man, I mean, I rule it that you have to have seen the creature before, just like Wild Shape, but at base, that's scary. Because, oh, I don't know what I'm turning you into. And it's not like some of the other conjuration spells where it's up to the DM, rules as intended, it's up to the DM to decide what's actually being summoned on some of the summon spells. No, in this, it just says a beast. You turn them into a beast. It might be up to the DM, it might be up to you, and it might just be up to whatever the player or the DM actually knows in the book, not what any of them have seen. But similar to a lot of things like summon or transformation, I mean, the whole catalog's any beast, and it's also variable depending on the target and what level it is or CR it is. So, I'll leave that to you. What are the situations or certain beasts or good picks you can think up in the comments? 8 out of 10. Quite solid. Still concentration, but even you can buff your own concentration saves on that, and the target doesn't need to suffer that. It can be a benefit, it can be a debuff, you can actually get it to deal damage to creatures by lining it up properly, aka a lot of stuff that's like, oh, if they're not moving, you can do max damage against it. I've seen players turn something into just a basic slug, pick it up, set up 100 different overlaying traps, not literally 100, but you know what I mean, different area of effects, spike pits, traps, just a cliff on one occasion, and just chuck the slug into it. Yeah, they'll turn back into that creature, but they're gonna take all the damage from all of those effects and traps. And held actions, likely.